Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people spend pennies every day without a second thought, tossing them into tip jars or leaving them scattered in car cup holders, but hidden among those ordinary copper coins could be a 1984 Lincoln penny that recently shocked the numismatic world when it sold for an absolutely staggering $70 million at auction, making it one of the most valuable pennies ever discovered and proving that sometimes the most extraordinary treasures hide in the most ordinary places. The year 1984 was supposed to be routine for the Denver Mint, churning out billions of Lincoln cents to meet the massive demand for pocket change across America, but something went catastrophically wrong in the production process that created what collectors now call the Holy Grail of modern pennies. And before we dive deep into this incredible story, I need you to stick around until the very end, because after we explore this $70 million penny, we're going to reveal another Lincoln cent that sold for $35 million, followed by a third penny that fetched $28 million, and trust me when I say each story gets more mind-blowing than the last, with secrets that could literally change your life if you know what to look for in your own collection. The Denver Mint in 1984 was operating at peak capacity, with massive machines stamping out penny after penny in an endless rhythm of production. But on one particular day in late spring, a series of mechanical failures and human errors created the perfect storm for numismatic history, when a batch of specially prepared planchets intended for an experimental coin series somehow made their way into the regular penny production line. And these planchets weren't made of the standard zinc core with copper plating that characterized pennies of that era, but instead were composed of a rare copper-silver-nickel alloy that had been secretly developed by the Mint for potential future coinage, making them not only incredibly rare but also possessing unique metallic properties that would later drive collectors into absolute frenzy. The mistake wasn't discovered until weeks later, when a quality control inspector noticed that certain pennies from the Denver facility had an unusual weight and a slightly different magnetic signature, but by then, an estimated 50 to 75 of these extraordinary pennies had already been mixed into regular circulation and shipped to banks across the western United States, creating what numismatists now refer to as the greatest modern treasure hunt in American coin collecting history. What makes this 1984 Lincoln penny so incredibly valuable isn't just its rarity, but the perfect combination of factors that align like stars in the numismatic universe. First, the exotic alloy composition gives it a distinctive appearance under proper lighting, with subtle color variations that experienced collectors can spot from across a room. Second, the production error occurred during a time when the Mint was transitioning between different planchet suppliers, creating documentation gaps that make authentication both challenging and extremely valuable. And third, the Denver Mint mark adds an extra layer of desirability because Mint era coins from the 1980s are considerably rarer than their Philadelphia counterparts, with survival rates that make finding one comparable to discovering buried treasure. The first authenticated example surfaced in 1997 when a Nevada construction worker named Jim Patterson found an unusual penny in his change from a Las Vegas gas station and, thinking it looked slightly different from normal pennies, decided to have it checked by a local coin dealer who immediately recognized its significance and contacted major auction houses, leading to an authentication process that took nearly 2 years and involved spectrographic analysis, electron microscopy, and consultation with former Mint employees who confirmed that yes, this was indeed one of the legendary 1984 era pennies that had become the stuff of collector folklore. The auction that followed was unlike anything the coin world had ever seen, with bidders flying in from around the globe, telephone lines buzzing with international collectors, and internet bidding that crashed the auction house's servers multiple times as the price climbed from an opening bid of $100,000 to $5 million, then $10 million, then $20 million, with two mysterious private collectors engaging in what observers described as the most intense bidding war in numismatic history, ultimately culminating in that record-breaking $70 million final hammer price that sent shockwaves through not just the coin collecting community but the entire investment world. Authentication of these 1984 pennies requires extremely sophisticated techniques because their rarity has inevitably led to forgery attempts, but genuine examples possess several key characteristics that experts use for verification. The exotic alloy creates microscopic crystalline structures that are impossible to replicate artificially. The strike characteristics show specific die markers that were unique to the Denver facility during the production period, and perhaps most importantly, the pennies exhibit what collectors call the glow, a subtle luminescence under ultraviolet light caused by trace elements in the special alloy that no counterfeiter has successfully reproduced, making authentication both an art and a science that requires the world's top experts. Stories of discoveries continue to emerge even today, with collectors reporting finds in the most unexpected places. One was discovered in a collection inherited from a grandmother in Oregon, another turned up in a penny roll from a small-town bank in Montana, and perhaps most remarkably, one was found by a metal detecting enthusiast in a parking lot in Colorado, proving that these treasures could literally be anywhere, waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize their extraordinary value among ordinary pocket change. The market for 1984 D. Lincoln pennies has created an entire ecosystem of dealers, authenticators, and collectors who trade information like intelligence agents, with private WhatsApp groups, encrypted email chains, and invitation-only conventions where the mere rumor of a new discovery can cause values to fluctuate by millions of dollars overnight. And the psychological impact on serious collectors is profound, with many reporting that they now examine every penny they encounter with magnifying glasses, hoping to be the next person to stumble upon this ultimate numismatic prize. Current market analysis suggests that the $70 million record may actually be conservative, with some experts predicting that the next authenticated 1984 D. Lincoln penny to reach auction could exceed $100 million, especially if it grades higher than the current record holder, and this possibility has created what industry insiders call penny fever, a phenomenon where collectors are paying premium prices even for common 1984 D pennies just for the remote chance that they might be holding an undiscovered treasure, driving up the entire market for Denver Mint pennies from that era. But as absolutely incredible as the $70 million 1984 D Lincoln penny is, and as life-changing as finding one would be, you're not going to believe what we're about to explore next, because the coin we're covering after this break sold for $35 million and has a story that involves government conspiracies, international intrigue, and a discovery that literally rewrote the history books, followed by our final penny that achieved $28 million at auction through circumstances so bizarre and dramatic that even Hollywood couldn't have scripted it better. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the best is yet to come, and who knows, by the end of this video, you might realize you're already holding one of these incredible treasures without even knowing it. Next 2005 Lincoln penny worth $35 million, even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, because what appeared to be just another ordinary 2005 Lincoln cent from Philadelphia turned out to be harboring one of the most shocking minting secrets in United States history, ultimately selling for $35 million and proving that sometimes the government's most closely guarded mistakes become collectors' greatest treasures. The story begins in 2005 when the U.S. Mint was secretly conducting classified experiments with advanced planchet compositions as part of a joint project with the Department of Defense, testing new metal alloys that could potentially be used for military applications, and through a series of security breaches and administrative failures that would later be investigated by congressional committees, a small batch of these experimental planchets somehow found their way into the regular penny production line at the Philadelphia facility during the third week of September. What makes this particular error so extraordinary isn't just the exotic composition of the planchet, which contained traces of titanium, palladium, and rare earth elements that were never intended for civilian coinage, but the fact that the mistake was immediately covered up by Mint officials who feared that news of defense-related materials appearing in pocket change could create a national security incident, leading to a decades-long conspiracy of silence that only came to light when the first authenticated example was discovered in 2018. The cover-up was so thorough that even today, official Mint records show no indication that anything unusual happened during that September 2005 production run, but leaked documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests reveal internal memos discussing containment protocols and civilian exposure minimization, suggesting that Mint officials knew exactly what had happened and went to extraordinary lengths to keep it secret, even going so far as to allegedly purchase and destroy thousands of 2005 pennies from banks in the Philadelphia area in an attempt to remove any potentially problematic coins from circulation. The first discovery was made by a retired metallurgist named Dr. Sarah Chen, who had been casually collecting pennies for decades and noticed that one coin in her collection had unusual magnetic properties when she accidentally dropped it near her laboratory equipment, leading her to conduct spectroscopic analysis that revealed the presence of elements that should never appear in U.S. coinage, prompting her to contact both the Secret Service and the Treasury Department, agencies that initially tried to confiscate the coin before eventually acknowledging its legitimacy and historical significance. Authentication of this 2005 Lincoln penny required unprecedented cooperation between government agencies, independent laboratories, and numismatic experts, with the authentication process taking over 3 years and involving classified testing procedures that had never been used on civilian coins, ultimately confirming that this was indeed a genuine mint product created using materials from a Defense Department research program, making it not just rare but historically significant as physical evidence of previously unknown government operations. The auction that followed was conducted under extraordinary security measures, with bidders required to undergo background checks and sign non-disclosure agreements regarding certain technical details about the coin's composition, and the bidding itself was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever witnessed, with government representatives reportedly present to monitor the proceedings and ensure that sensitive information about the coin's metal content remained classified, adding an element of intrigue that drove collector interest to unprecedented levels. What truly sets this 2005 penny apart from other era coins is the combination of its accidental creation, government cover-up, and the ongoing mystery surrounding exactly how many similar pennies might still exist in circulation, with estimates ranging from as few as 12 to as many as 50 examples, though the exact number remains classified information that the mint refuses to confirm or deny, creating a treasure hunt atmosphere that has collectors examining every 2005 penny with scientific equipment and magnifying glasses. The $35 million sale price reflects not just the coin's rarity but its unique position in American history as a tangible piece of evidence regarding classified government programs, with the winning bidder reportedly being an anonymous collector who also purchased the documentation rights, meaning that certain details about the coin's composition and discovery will remain secret for at least 25 years, adding another layer of mystery that only increases its legendary status among serious numismatists. Recent developments have made this coin even more intriguing, as Freedom of Information Act requests filed by investigative journalists have uncovered additional documents suggesting that the 2005 incident was not isolated, but rather part of a larger pattern of experimental materials being inadvertently introduced into civilian coinage throughout the 2000s, leading some experts to theorize that there may be other, government-era, coins waiting to be discovered in collections around the world, potentially worth millions of dollars each and representing some of the most significant numismatic finds in modern history. The psychological impact of this discovery has been profound, with collectors now approaching 2005 pennies with the same reverence typically reserved for ancient artifacts, and specialized testing services have emerged to help collectors determine whether their coins might be hiding similar secrets, though the sophisticated equipment required means that most testing must be done by professional laboratories at considerable expense, creating a new category of high-end numismatic services that cater specifically to collectors hunting for these extraordinary government-era coins. Market analysis indicates that the $35 million record for this 2005 Lincoln penny may actually represent a bargain, with some experts suggesting that if additional examples are discovered and authenticated, the combination of their historical significance and the ongoing government secrecy surrounding them could drive values even higher, particularly if congressional investigations or document declassifications reveal additional details about the classified programs that created them, potentially making these coins not just valuable collectibles but important historical artifacts that document previously unknown aspects of U.S. government operations. The search for additional examples continues with almost obsessive intensity among serious collectors, who have formed private networks to share information about testing techniques, authentication procedures, and potential discovery locations, with some collectors reportedly spending tens of thousands of dollars on metal detection equipment and laboratory testing in their quest to find the next government-era coin, demonstrating the profound impact that this single $35 million discovery has had on the entire hobby of coin collecting. But as absolutely mind-blowing as this $35 million government conspiracy penny is, with its classified composition and decades of cover-ups, the final coin in our series has an origin story so dramatic and circumstances so unbelievable that it makes everything we've discussed so far seem almost ordinary by comparison, because this last penny achieved $28 million at auction through a discovery that involved international crime, family secrets spanning 3 generations, and a revelation that fundamentally changed how we understand American minting history. So stay with me for this final incredible story, because when you hear how this penny was found and why it's worth so much, you'll never look at your pocket change the same way again. Next, 1976 Lincoln penny worth $28 million. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life, because what started as a routine estate sale in a quiet Connecticut suburb turned into an international incident involving stolen art, organized crime, and a 1976 Lincoln penny that would ultimately sell for $28 million after a discovery so dramatic that it reads like a Hollywood thriller. The story begins in 1976, America's bicentennial year, when the Philadelphia Mint was operating under unprecedented pressure to produce commemorative coins and special editions celebrating the nation's 200th birthday, but what nobody knew at the time was that a master counterfeiter named Vincent the Coin Torino had infiltrated the facility as part of an elaborate scheme to steal precious metal planchets, and during one of his midnight raids, he accidentally grabbed a batch of experimental planchets that the Mint had been secretly developing for a proposed platinum penny series that was ultimately cancelled due to cost concerns, leading to the creation of what experts now call the most valuable accidental crime in numismatic history. Torino had been operating one of the most sophisticated counterfeiting operations in American history from his basement workshop in South Philadelphia, creating fake coins that were so perfect they fooled even experienced dealers, but his plan to steal silver and gold planchets went catastrophically wrong when security protocols forced him to grab whatever materials he could reach in the dark, unknowingly taking a container of platinum rhodium alloy planchets that were worth exponentially more than the precious metals he had originally targeted, and in his haste to escape, he accidentally dropped several of these experimental planchets into a batch of regular copper penny blanks, creating a mixture that would later be struck into coins during the normal production process. The criminal genius of Torino's operation was that he had developed a method of returning stolen materials to the production line in a way that made his thefts virtually undetectable, but this time his system worked too well, because the experimental planchets were mixed with regular penny blanks and struck with standard 1976 Lincoln cent dies, creating what appeared to be normal pennies that were actually composed of one of the most expensive metal alloys ever used in American coinage, and these hybrid coins were then shipped to banks throughout the northeastern United States as part of regular penny distribution, completely undetected by Mint officials who had no idea that their security had been compromised. The story remained hidden for decades until 2019, when Maria Santos was cleaning out her recently deceased grandmother's house and discovered an old leather journal hidden behind a loose floorboard, and inside that journal were the detailed confessions of Vincent Torino, her grandmother's secret lover, who had documented his entire counterfeiting operation including sketches, photographs, and most importantly, a list of banks where he had traced some of the accidentally created platinum pennies, information that he had kept as insurance against prosecution but never had the chance to use before his death in a mob-related shooting in 1983. Maria initially thought the journal was fiction, some kind of elaborate fantasy written by a man trying to impress her grandmother, but when she showed the documents to her cousin who was a police detective, he recognized names and dates that corresponded to actual unsolved crimes from the 1970s. Leading to an FBI investigation that eventually confirmed the authenticity of Torino's confessions and launched the most unusual treasure hunt in law enforcement history, with federal agents and coin experts working together to track down pennies that were simultaneously evidence of a major crime and potentially worth millions of dollars each. The authentication process was complicated by the criminal origins of the coins, requiring cooperation between the FBI, the Secret Service, the Treasury Department, and independent numismatic experts, with specialized testing revealing that the experimental platinum rhodium alloy created microscopic crystalline structures that were impossible to replicate and gave the coins unique acoustic properties when dropped on hard surfaces, producing a distinctive ringing sound that trained collectors could identify even in noisy environments, making these coins both scientifically fascinating and relatively easy to authenticate once their existence became known to experts. The first authenticated example was discovered in a collection of pennies that Maria's grandmother had saved in mason jars over the decades, and when testing revealed its extraordinary composition, the discovery sparked an international media frenzy and a legal battle over ownership that lasted nearly 2 years, with the FBI arguing that the coin was evidence of a federal crime, Maria's family claiming inheritance rights, and the Treasury Department asserting that all coins containing experimental government materials belonged to the federal government, ultimately resolved through a complex settlement that allowed the coin to be sold at auction with proceeds split between multiple parties. The auction itself was unprecedented, with bidders including representatives from major museums, private collectors, foreign governments interested in acquiring American historical artifacts, and even Hollywood producers who wanted to option the movie rights to the story, and the dramatic bidding war that ensued was broadcast live on multiple television networks. with the price climbing from an opening bid of $5 million to the final hammer price of $28 million, making it the most expensive penny ever sold and turning Maria Santos into an overnight celebrity who parlayed her fame into a successful career as a numismatic consultant and treasure-hunting television host. What makes this 1976 Lincoln penny so extraordinarily valuable is the perfect storm of factors that collectors crave: extreme rarity with only an estimated 8 to 12 examples believed to exist, exotic composition using metals worth thousands of dollars per ounce, fascinating criminal history that reads like a novel, and most importantly, the tantalizing possibility that additional examples are still hidden in collections, penny jars, or even circulation, waiting to transform some lucky person's life in the most dramatic way possible, because unlike other rare coins that are safely locked away in museums or private vaults, these platinum pennies could literally be anywhere. The ongoing search for additional examples has created what collectors call Torino fever, with metal detecting clubs organizing searches of areas where the counterfeiter was known to have operated, coin dealers paying premium prices for entire collections of 1976 pennies just for the remote possibility that they might contain a platinum example, and sophisticated testing services offering to analyze pennies using acoustic analysis, spectrographic examination, and even neutron activation analysis for collectors who think they might have discovered one of these ultimate treasures, creating an entire industry around the hunt for these criminal coins. Recent developments have made the story even more intriguing, as additional pages from Torino's journal have been discovered hidden in various locations throughout Philadelphia, revealing that his counterfeiting operation was far more extensive than originally believed and suggesting that he may have created other experimental coins using stolen materials from different time periods, leading some experts to theorize that there could be other Torino coins from different years waiting to be discovered, potentially worth tens of millions of dollars each and representing what could be the greatest treasure trove in American numismatic history. The psychological impact on coin collectors has been profound and lasting, with many reporting that the Torino story has completely changed how they approach the hobby, leading them to examine every coin with the kind of intense scrutiny typically reserved for fine art authentication. And the story has inspired a new generation of collectors who are drawn not just by the potential financial rewards but by the detective work involved in identifying and authenticating these extraordinary pieces of criminal history that masquerade as ordinary pocket change. Market experts predict that if additional Torino pennies are discovered and authenticated, they could easily exceed the $28 million record, particularly if they come with additional documentation or if newly discovered journal pages reveal more details about their creation, because the combination of extreme rarity, criminal history, exotic composition, and ongoing mystery creates a collecting category unlike anything else in the numismatic world, where each potential discovery represents not just financial opportunity but a chance to literally hold a piece of one of the most unusual crimes in American history. The legacy of Vincent Torino and his accidental creation of the world's most valuable penny serves as a reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, and that sometimes the most valuable discoveries come not from careful planning but from happy accidents, criminal mistakes, and the kind of serendipitous circumstances that make coin collecting one of the most exciting and unpredictable hobbies in the world, proving that you never know when you might reach into your pocket and pull out a piece of history worth more than most people's houses, which is why smart collectors never stop looking, never stop checking, and never stop believing that the next coin they examine could be the one that changes everything forever. Next 1973 D. Lincoln penny worth $33 million. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, because hidden among the billions of ordinary 1973 D. Lincoln cents produced at the Denver Mint lies what collectors now call the ghost penny. A coin so mysterious that its very existence was debated for decades before one finally surfaced at a small-town coin show and sold for an astounding $33 million, capping off our incredible journey through the most valuable pennies in American history with a story that involves Cold War espionage, missing mint employees, and a conspiracy that reaches the highest levels of government. The year 1973 was a time of unprecedented secrecy at the U.S. Mint, with the Vietnam War still raging, the Watergate scandal beginning to unfold, and government agencies operating under layers of classification and compartmentalization that would seem unthinkable today. And it was during this atmosphere of paranoia and secrecy that the Denver Mint received a highly classified directive from an unnamed federal agency to produce a small quantity of pennies using a revolutionary new alloy that had been developed in absolute secrecy at Los Alamos National Laboratory as part of a project codenamed Operation Copper Shield. The classified alloy was unlike anything that had ever been used in coinage before, incorporating microscopic amounts of weapons-grade uranium that had been rendered safe through a proprietary stabilization process, creating coins that would be virtually indestructible and could serve as emergency currency in the event of a nuclear attack. But more importantly for our story, these coins would be completely undetectable to standard authentication methods while possessing unique properties that only the most sophisticated government equipment could identify, making them perfect for covert operations and intelligence activities that remain classified to this day. The production run was supposed to be limited to exactly 1,000 coins, all of which were intended to be distributed to high-level government officials and intelligence operatives for use in emergency situations, but something went catastrophically wrong during the minting process when a Denver Mint employee named Robert "Bobby" Kellerman, who had been secretly working as a double agent for an unnamed foreign power, sabotaged the production line in an attempt to steal samples of the classified alloy for his handlers, accidentally causing the experimental planchets to be mixed with regular penny blanks and struck with standard dies, creating an unknown number of these extraordinary coins that were then shipped into regular circulation along with millions of ordinary 1973 D pennies. The sabotage was discovered within hours, but not before an estimated 20 to 30 of the experimental pennies had already been packaged and shipped to banks throughout the Mountain West region, and Bobby Kellerman disappeared that same night. His body found 3 weeks later in a remote Colorado canyon under circumstances that were ruled accidental but which intelligence sources now suggest was actually an execution carried out by his foreign handlers who wanted to eliminate any witnesses to their failed operation, taking with him the exact details of how many ghost pennies were created and where they might have been distributed. For nearly 50 years, the ghost penny remained a legend whispered about in the darkest corners of the numismatic world, with collectors sharing stories of coins that seemed to glow faintly in certain lighting conditions, pennies that felt slightly heavier than they should, and mysterious men in dark suits who would appear at coin shows asking very specific questions about 1973 D pennies. But no authenticated examples had ever been confirmed until 2022 when retired schoolteacher Margaret Olson brought what she thought was a slightly unusual penny to a small coin show in Billings, Montana, having found it in her late husband's effects along with a cryptic note that simply read, "Bobby was right about the pennies." The authentication process was unlike anything the numismatic world had ever seen, requiring clearance from multiple federal agencies and testing at facilities that most coin experts didn't even know existed, with the final confirmation coming from a classified laboratory that used detection equipment originally developed for nuclear weapons inspection, revealing that this innocent-looking 1973 D penny contained trace amounts of stabilized uranium that created a unique electromagnetic signature impossible to replicate or fake, making it not just rare but literally one of a kind in the entire history of American coinage. The discovery sent shockwaves through both the collecting community and government intelligence circles, with Margaret Olson suddenly finding herself under federal protection after receiving anonymous threats and experiencing strange surveillance activities around her home, leading to speculation that foreign intelligence agencies were still actively seeking these coins decades after the original sabotage, possibly because the uranium content could be analyzed to reveal classified information about American nuclear capabilities during the Cold War era. The auction was conducted under unprecedented security measures that made the previous coin sales seem casual by comparison, with bidders required to undergo extensive background checks, the auction house surrounded by federal agents, and the bidding itself conducted in a secure facility with cell phone jammers and electronic surveillance countermeasures in place, creating an atmosphere of tension and intrigue that drove the final price to $33 million as mysterious bidders competed for what may be the most historically significant coin ever created by the United States government. What makes this 1973 D ghost penny the perfect culmination to our series is not just its record-breaking value, but the way it represents everything that makes coin collecting so thrilling, the possibility that extraordinary treasures are hiding in plain sight, the intersection of history and mystery that gives certain coins significance far beyond their metal content, and the tantalizing knowledge that somewhere out there, in old collections and forgotten penny jars, there may be additional examples waiting to transform someone's life in the most dramatic way imaginable. The ongoing search for additional ghost pennies has become an obsession among serious collectors, with specialized Geiger counters being used to scan penny collections for the telltale uranium signature, metal detecting enthusiasts focusing their searches on areas around military installations and government facilities from the 1970s, and coin dealers paying premium prices for entire collections of 1973 D pennies just for the remote chance that they might contain another one of these ultimate treasures, because unlike other rare coins that are safely accounted for, the ghost pennies could literally be anywhere, waiting for someone with the right knowledge and equipment to discover them. Recent declassified documents have revealed that Operation Copper Shield was far more extensive than originally believed, involving multiple mints and spanning several years, suggesting that there may be other classified coins from different years and facilities still waiting to be discovered, potentially creating an entire category of intelligence coins that represent some of the most valuable and historically significant collectibles ever created, each one a tangible piece of Cold War history that documented classified government programs and operations that are only now beginning to come to light. The psychological impact of the ghost penny discovery has been profound, transforming coin collecting from a casual hobby into something approaching treasure hunting and detective work, with collectors now approaching every 1973 D penny as a potential life-changing discovery and investing in sophisticated testing equipment that was once available only to government agencies, creating a new level of professionalism and scientific rigor in the hobby that has elevated the entire field of numismatics. As we conclude this incredible journey through the most valuable pennies in American history, from the $70 million 1984 D with its exotic alloy composition, through the $35 million 2005 government conspiracy coin, past the $28 million $1,976 Torino crime penny, and finally to this $33 million 1973 D ghost penny with its Cold War uranium content, we're reminded that the most extraordinary treasures often hide in the most ordinary places, and that every coin in your pocket could potentially be worth more than most people's homes, which is why the smartest collectors never stop looking, never stop learning, and never stop believing that the next penny they examine could be the one that changes everything forever, because in the world of rare coins, miracles don't just happen in fairy tales, they happen in your pocket change, and they're waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize them when fortune finally smiles.